I'm Indra.
And I'm Amanda.
And we'd like to welcome you to The Messy Middle Matters. Hey, Amanda, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Indra?
I'm good. I was just thinking about, have you ever come across that person who's having FOMO because they didn't get to go to the conference and they start having a fit and they start losing their mind only to realize, and someone says, hold on, the whole thing was recorded. You can watch it on your own schedule.
Yes, more than once, actually. The FOMO is real.
The FOMO is real. And the FOMO to me comes from the fact that our society is so often geared towards a zero-sum game, right? Let me define that so that everyone understands what that is, because some people may not have heard that term before. So a zero-sum game has lots of different fancy definitions, but I prefer the pizza analogy. So when you think of a pizza pie, there's only 8 slices in a standard pizza, and there's only so many slices to go around, and you have to figure out who's getting which slices, or if you're cutting slices in half because you only have so much pizza, right? It's when you're talking about something like a zero-sum game, you're in this scarcity mindset. Not enough to go around. What if we have 9 people? What happens? Oh my gosh.
Right. If Indra gets 4 slices and Amanda gets 4 slices, that means Sally gets 0
slices. Too sad, Sally.
Yeah.
But an abundance mindset is the belief that there are ample resources and opportunities for everyone. We can always order another pizza. We're privileged enough to have the money to order another pizza. It'll be okay. Or maybe even Sally doesn't even want pizza. Hey, Sally, I know you don't love pizza. I'm buying cookies tomorrow. Do you want 4 of them? And Amanda and I will only get 1 each because I'm going to buy 6 of them. You can find a way out of it.
Right.
When you have that abundance mindset.
Yeah. That's such a good analogy. I don't know that I can top that one. It's so visual too, right?
Right. And it's also the one that Agile uses so much, which is why, and it's so relatable. I mean, a pizza is an American staple food, so everyone can relate to that. But, I've been thinking about this abundance mindset and cultivating it in myself for years. But recently I revisited a book that I had recommended it to a friend, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's really, really useful in this moment in time. I started rereading it with Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game. Came out in 2019, right before the pandemic. But it's a slight different reframing of the scarcity and abundance mindset. In his book, let me define some of the terms that are in his book. So finite games are played by known players. They have fixed rules, and there's an agreed upon objective that when reached ends the game. So football has 4 quarters with I don't know how many minutes in it. Baseball has 9 innings. Golf has 18 holes. Sports are a really good example of finite games. Everyone knows the rules. There are referees who make sure the rules get followed. You understand the constraints of a finite game. So there can be this scarcity mindset because you need to accomplish what you want to accomplish within the given parameters. But infinite games have infinite time horizons. And because there's no finish line, no practical end to the game, there's no such thing as winning an infinite game. In an infinite game, the primary objective is to keep playing to perpetuate the game. And in the book, he talks about infinite games business is an infinite game. No matter how many times somebody says we're the best at blah, 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 you're the number one company at that thing against the parameters that you decided to choose at this exact moment in time. You can't win the stock market. You can't win, believe it or not, you can't win politics either, because you know what? That's an infinite game. It goes on as long as we need a political system. Politics keeps on going. There might be, milestones throughout all of this, but there is no end to that game. So you need to have a different kind of mindset when you're playing an infinite game versus a finite one.
Right. We're all stuck. Yeah, we're all stuck in this game, right? We're playing a game. We don't know when the game is going to end. Is the game ever going to end? And yeah, you're right. I think, there are milestones. There are ends to chapters.
Ends to chapters, I think, is a great way to think of it, because it's, if I think about business, a lot of publicly traded companies need to publish their quarterly earnings. So you might be thinking of like each quarterly milestone of announcing to the analysts what your earnings were for that quarter. That's a milestone. It's not the end of the game.
Right. It's like mini games. It's mini games within the infinite game.
Right. I mean, when I was at Verizon, they gave me a corporate career coach, but she gave me a wonderful like visual. 'Cause I love a good metaphor. I know, Amanda, you love a good metaphor, and I love good visualization. She gave me the metaphor of like marathons, right? Because I was in an environment where a lot of people were trying to win the thing. And I'm like, but the finish line isn't the finish line. We have to work the next day too. Like it just keeps on going. She's like, think of it as a marathon and try and get them to start thinking of it as a marathon where you hit the water station, you hit the mile mark, you hit the this, you hit the that. The finish line is way, way off in the sunset because even when your project is over, you launch the thing. The next day you need to keep working. And so you need to keep going. So infinite games.
Yeah. And I was thinking about how, well, a marathon, you do know where the finish line is, but I do know a lot of marathon runners. And it's like, well, you finish the marathon and you're training for the next marathon.
Oh, they are. They are. What is it? There's that joke. How do you know a marathoner? They'll tell you that they are because it's part of their blood. It's part of their DNA. It's part of how they walk in this world. And I love when people have passions around things, right? So it is the next race. It's like, oh, I finished New York, but I want to do Boston.
Right.
I want to do Tokyo. I did New York, but I want to do New York better. Like there's always, for most of them, or many of them, the people who are repeat offenders, so to speak. It's the next thing, or, there are some marathons. There's like those ultra marathons where the people don't know the course. I don't remember the name of it. There's the ultra marathons where the people don't know the course and they don't know the ending and you need to finish each, like, you don't know. There's different kinds of games, and the game of life, the game of business are infinite games, full stop, period. No one's going to convince me otherwise.
Right. And the point of the infinite game is to continue the game.
You don't want to demolish your just to give people some of the tidbits from the book. The book is great. You don't want to demolish your competition. Your goal isn't to, like, Apple didn't try and pummel IBM or Microsoft. They wanted to advance the game. Steve Jobs understood that the goal was to keep the game going. When people start trying to obliterate the competition, that's often a very short-sighted way. And they start applying finite tactics to an infinite game. And that is usually their downfall. Like the classic example that shows up in so many business books and so many different things is the Kodak example, right? It didn't end the company right away when they got that finite mindset and said, no, we're not going to pivot to digital, even though we were the first ones to invent a digital camera. It took a long time it was a slow decline, but they in the end, because they applied finite tactics, created a scarcity mindset around things. That was the decline of their organization. So
yeah, when you said Kodak, my brain went to Blockbuster.
Another finite game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They didn't think that Netflix would be Netflix, right?
No, they were stuck in their game versus understanding that the game is constantly being reinvented.
Right.
Because it's an infinite game.
Right. It's an infinite game. It's not, they were stuck in their mini game of, the stores where you rent physical copies of DVDs, but, back in the day, VHS, and they didn't understand that the game was being reinvented by the Netflixes of the world, where streaming is the thing.
Right. They were winning at VHS, and God bless them. There's one Blockbuster left in Alaska. Yeah. And that's out of necessity. Like that's purely out of necessity and the conditions in Alaska. But I think that in the daily life, like we're talking about like really big things. And I don't think most of our listeners are probably not the people operating at this macro level. They might be watching that macro view of things, but they're not on the day to day. And, one of the things that was in the book and that really is around scarcity versus abundance mindsets is how do you operate in organizations? Because we are so entrenched and ingrained, like, again, we've been conditioned to think of a lot of things as a scarcity mindset in our culture. when your leaders are thinking of things in a scarcity mindset, how do you apply an infinite mindset? And where can you apply that infinite mindset? Like, where can you apply that abundance mindset to a situation, even if your leader isn't a scarcity thing? And recognizing the difference, I think part of that is recognizing the difference between what is a finite game in the work world and what is an infinite game, because there are some very clear finite games out there.
Right. Like, finite game that comes to mind is budget, right? Budget allocation. You have this much money for the year, the quarter, the whatever your time is, right? That is a finite resource.
It's a finite resource. It applies to projects. It applies to salaries. It applies to bonuses. It applies to promotions. It applies to a lot of things.
Right. It's the pizza metaphor, right? Like, think of your budget as a pizza. It's like, if you give part of this budget to this department, that means another department isn't getting that part of the pizza.
Right. Yeah. I saw a fun. I was going to digress and talk about a TikTok video I saw about like different departments and perspectives on budgets, but we're going to stay on topic. Shiny object. Object.
Another example that comes to mind is I worked at a company where review time, like performance review time, was very much like the Hunger Games. There were strict rules about how many promotions per cycle per department were allowed. So that was definitely a scarcity mindset where, I wasn't a manager at the time, but I had heard that like all the managers in the department were in all of these calibration sessions and all the meetings around performance reviews. And they had to go to bat for the people on their team who they thought, was deserving of a promotion, and fight with other managers for the limited number of promotions that were allowed for the department for that cycle.
I think that's a perfect example of a game that is a finite game, period, full stop. Because like you said, there's money involved. There's, at the end of the day, money is involved. And, organizations create restrictions on how many people can be at which tiers of the organization, so they don't become top heavy, so their budgets stay aligned, so that they're all the different things stay aligned. And I think I've been in those rooms. I think I've heard about those rooms. Those rooms are not fun at all. But what I will say is that you can start applying, there's lots of tools and techniques to make those rooms less stressful. Maybe that's another episode for another day. But when you're thinking about how do your leadership is playing a finite game of these promotions and these fixed number promotions, and there is scarcity of this, how can you start applying infinite tactics and abundance tactics in your communications with your team? Because there is a decent chance that, let's say you went through all the exercises yourself as a leader and you identified you had to pick one person that you're going to throw into for the winning the Hunger Games here, right? And there are decent odds that one person is not going to be the one that's selected across all the different departments in the organization. How do you make your team in that scenario? How do you make your team still feel valued, still feel incentivized, still feel important, still feel seen by other departments? Like, that's a whole different skill set. And that requires you to draw on those abundance mindset tools and techniques and sharing those with your team members. Because otherwise it just, that can become the toxicity of a Hunger Games like environment will cascade if you don't stop that from happening. It will cascade across the entire organization.
Right. That's a morale killer for sure. Yeah. And, it permeates through the organization, right? It, like, that kind of thinking, that scarcity mindset thinking of, I need a part of that pizza, leads to what I think is unnecessary competition amongst peers. And it's just like, wait, we all have to remember that we're one team here.
It's unhealthy. It's really unhealthy. And it's just, it festers. It can fester if you don't get ahead of it. I think for me as a people leader in those scenarios, I usually try and prep my team well before we enter the Hunger Games so that they know and they get a little bit of a glimpse, the tiniest little glimpse. Like, it's not appropriate to share everything, but you can share just enough to give them a sense of like what's at stake, what the various parameters are, how things are going to be going. And this is just the reality that we live in. It makes me think of my favorite quote. I live by this quote by a gentleman named Michael Korda. To succeed, it's necessary to accept the world as it is and rise above it. I live by that quote. And so just helping them understand the reality, not scare them, not overwhelm them. But then when it comes back and your nominee was not selected, you're in District 12. I don't remember all my districts from the Hunger Games, but whatever. Right. You're not in the favored district this time. And how do you manage that for your team? I think it's pointing out all the things that you do have, right? If you're part of a team that allows for more education and training than other teams do, if you're a team that literally buys multicolored Post-its, I wish I was kidding, for their team, you might be the envy of the entire company. Right? And Post-its multicolored Post-its might be a very important thing for your team. It may not be if you're in an accounting department. I don't know. I've never worked in an accounting department. But you have to just start pointing out all the things that you do have, all the things that are possible, all the things that do matter, and how your team is actually advancing. The just cause is another term that Simon's got in his book, and we can talk a little bit about that. I'll define it in a second, but you're helping to advance the team's just cause, right? An example of a just cause, when I was at WeWork, when I joined, the mission statement changed partway through while I was there, but the just cause when I joined was called helping people to make a life, not just a living. That's a just cause, right? You can see oh my gosh, I want to make that possible because so many of us spend our work day or our days of the week at work. Wouldn't it be awesome if we're helping people, make that portion of their life a little bit better, right? That's a just cause. So an example of one.
Yeah. I think you touched on a really important point of seeing what's possible, right? Seeing what's possible outside of the thing directly in front of you, outside of the one pizza you see on the conference room table.
Yes. There might be a salad in the corner. There's breadsticks over there. There's options. There's options
to order another pizza, like you said, right?
Absolutely.
And there are times, especially when it comes to budgets and money, right? Yeah. There are times where this is all you have, but there are other options that are not money, that are not monetary.
Spending time with there's intrinsic and extrinsic. You can offer coffee chats with a senior leader. That matters to some people. Having the chance to be in a coffee chat with a senior leader of the company, that costs time, doesn't cost money. That's an easy way to say, hey guys, I know you guys didn't get included on this promotion cycle because we had constraints, but I wanted to talk to you and say how valuable you are and have a chance for you to ask me any questions you might have.
Right. Or, understanding what makes your team happy, right? What they need or want is more flexibility, right? Say, hey, summer Fridays, of course, according to company policies and whatever, right? But if that is an option, why not? Why not offer that to your team and, keep them happy in that way, if not a monetary or promotion kind of way in this finite game.
Yeah, I was part of a team. I was remembering I was part of a team. We were one of the handful of, we're maybe the only team that was allowed to wear jeans to work. Because in that craft, in the broader industry, wearing jeans to work was it's a baseline benefit,
luxury.
Right? It's a baseline benefit. If we wouldn't let people wear jeans to work, we could not get them to join our company. And so that was our thing, right? That was our thing. And we were very much taught to not flaunt it in front of others. They could see that we were wearing jeans, but you can't be walking around look at my jeans. I got jeans. That's finite
guess
nonsense.
What, everyone? Indra let us all wear jeans today.
But that's you don't want those finite thinking, scarcity thinking tactics to show up in your infinite thinking of your benefits as you're trying to work through things. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that last part, I think, is just not seeing the dress code as a limitation, right?
Facts.
Like seeing it as a potential opportunity to fulfill some need for your team.
Right. I mean, I love that. It's, letting, what do we have? The other thing that I've done as a leader whenever I could is, before holiday weekends, early dismissal, workload permitting, please do everything you can to make sure workload permits. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't just sneak out. Just sneak out. As soon as you're done with your work, sneak out. Like, don't make a big deal. Check your, phone every once in a while to make sure something hasn't blown up, but like, go.
Yeah, same. Like, hey, it's Halloween. Block off your calendar so that people don't schedule meetings for that afternoon. But if you've got to go to your kids' Halloween parade, go.
Those Halloween parades sneak up on you at work. They really do. But I think that it's also, important to, when we're thinking about abundance and scarcity mindsets, like the one thing that you want to keep in the back of your mind, the ability to have an abundance and scarcity mindset may shift and change depending on what type of privilege you have. And privilege comes in lots of different ways and shapes and forms, but understanding understanding that and being very conscious of it is really important. There's a strange little paradox. I find that people who have less privilege sometimes have an easier time tapping into an abundance mindset.
Agreed. I think, I think, what do they say, about art, right? Like if you have a blank piece of paper and you're allowed to do whatever you want, sometimes you get in a mental block. Like you're somehow, like you said, it's a paradox. You're somehow limited by the infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
Whereas like if there are some constraints of like, here's a piece of paper, but you only have these 3 colors to work with.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best art comes out of that. Like it just gets your creative juices flowing in a different way.
Yeah. And if you're the team who's always had all the perks and all the everything, and that becomes your baseline of expectation, when you lose and part of those perks are, let's say, 3 free lunches a week, and you lose one of those free lunches because of budgetary cuts, it can feel like the sky is falling. Like, dude, no one else is getting free lunch across the entire company. You've gone from 3 to 2. Calm down.
Right.
May not use that language with them, but my inner monologue would definitely be saying that.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know any other synonym to like abundance mindset, right?
Yeah.
Other than, the definition of an abundance mindset. It's seeing the possibilities for what they are.
Yeah.
And just like opening your mind and being curious to what else is possible? What else is out there? It's not just, what you see in front of you or what you've been trained to think is the structure, is the reward, is everything.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to really evaluate, because part of this is understanding like what's finite and what's infinite. I think money, we're clear on, that's finite. Time is finite. Like there are certain things that are just either laws of the universe or laws of capitalist societies, right? Those are 2, right? But like, I think that you walk through some really good ways of, taking a look at a situation and saying, is this truly finite, or are there other possibilities? So I think understanding that is the first step. And when you're in a finite game, sometimes you just got to play those rules and play those rules for as long as you can. Like that's just going to be what it's going to be. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah. And something that just came to mind about abundance mindset, it is a mindset, right? Sometimes the limiting thing is you.
It's so funny. Like 100%. Like you and I have talked recently around soft skills and talking about soft skills and how, building those up is like, it's a practice. It's a practice that you have to exercise every single day. An abundance mindset to me is also something you need to practice every single darn day. It's a way of walking through this world. It's not a tactic. It's a way of walking through this world. And so finding even in your everyday life, like, is this a scarcity thing or is this an abundance thing? I don't know. Like, let's take a look at it. Let's talk about it. Let's see what's possible. It's a lower stakes, maybe. It might feel a little lower stakes for you to really practice your evaluation skills.
Right. Like going back to the soft skills example, like, am I just accepting that I'm not the best at soft skills? Or do I have an abundance mindset about it? And can I learn and grow and prove to myself that this isn't a limiting belief?
Right. I mean, and there might be a person might have like legitimate challenges towards developing soft skills. And, but in most cases, there's something that they might be able to do, right? And we're just using soft skills as one example. Like, how can I, I love that. Like, I'm thinking of like bring to mind like a vision of like a horse. Like, how do you open the blinders a little bit? Sometimes the blinders are really good because they keep you focused, right? And that's the beauty of like having that during a finite game. But is it finite? Like, how do I open that up just a little bit to see things, see the possibilities? See the possibilities.
I mean, it's been a while since I've talked about pottery on this podcast, but I'm still doing pottery classes.
Love it.
And just seeing the progress between, my very first piece and like what I'm making now. Like I don't have anything on my desk right now, but I recently made a mug that is big enough to be useful, right?
I loved your first mug. I loved your first mug, but I can see the value of having that, like just seeing that growth.
Right. But it was an abundance mindset thing. It was what is possible? Like I actually can do this.
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't think my brain would go here. I was we were having an offsite. And it was one of these things where everybody had to come together. And one of the activities that they had for like team building was paint and sip. So, and it was really funny. And half of the people that were part of this activity were quote creatives, and half of the people were not. I land somewhere in the middle. I don't know what I am, but it was really funny between the creatives and the non-creatives. How many people were paralyzed because they had this vision of what their painting was supposed to look like based on the example that the teacher gave us. And they got stuck. They got stuck in finite thinking. They got stuck in like, it was more finite thinking than, let's say, scarcity thinking, but they're very, very similar. They're very closely related to each other. And the people who succeeded were like, let's see what happens. Let's do some stuff. Let's create something.
Right. So I could totally see this playing out, right?
Yeah.
Like I have this visual in my head of the teacher, painting this thing and showing it to the class and being like, okay, this is what we're going to paint today. And the creatives or the people who were limited by this finite mindset were like, I have to make my painting look exactly like that one. Whereas you, for example, were just like, yeah, I'm going to try.
I loved my painting because the background color reminded me of the color of the hallways in my elementary school.
Right.
And that was it.
I'm sure there was someone in your class who painted something altogether different. They're just like, completely. I don't want to paint that tree today.
They did. And they had much more fun. Life is much more fun in an abundance mindset. It gets us out of like, someone's got to win and into like, how do we all win? How do we all win? How do we keep this game going? How do the most of us win in all of this? And that's what I personally love. And why for me, abundance mindset is very much part of my practice. Like, you can go into gratitude journaling, or like, Adam Grant had a good one recently. It wasn't gratitude that he was counting impact. Right? Like, what impact did I have today? Not what am I grateful for, but what impact did I have? Like, that's actually a fun little way to exercise some of the muscles that are related to this.
Yeah. What impact did I have, as opposed to like, what did I accomplish today?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, I made the cashier's day a little bit happy. I made her laugh. Like, okay, great. That was an impact. I don't know how that trickled through the rest of her day, but I know that was one of the positive things in her life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, it's just being able to be open-minded, I think. Yeah. Open-minded is a good synonym. I did it. I thought of one.
You got there. Yes.
Yeah, I got there. Open-mindedness, right? An open-mindedness mindset, an open-mindedness attitude toward life, toward work, figuring out like what actually is a finite versus an infinite game.
100%. I think it's a lovely place for us to end. Thank you, Amanda, for another rich conversation. And thank you to everyone who's listening. We hope that you join us next time when we cover another topic for the messy middle. Bye.
Bye.
If today's episode hit home or just made you laugh, you might love our merch. We've got 3 collections. Don't Make Me Regret, in honor of the sweatshirt that started it all. Words Matter, inspired by our most popular episode. And Embrace the Messy to celebrate the beautiful chaos. Head to shop.themessymiddlematters.com to take a look. Everything's print on demand, so be sure to double check your size before ordering. But if anything goes wrong with the printing, our vendor will work with you to make it right. Looking for a different cut or size? Email us at podcast@themessymiddlematters.com so that we can explore the option. Thanks for making the Messy Middle matter.